Me going vegan has a negligible impact on anything in society and represents a great cause personally to me.
I don't even think this argument holds for the average person, but for Destiny, there's just no way it's true. That's because just like guns, fame is a force multiplier.
The gun is like a force amplifier.
What do you mean?
So somebody might have a bad idea or an inclination to do something bad, and a firearm gives you the ability to do more bad than you would otherwise. For instance, if I wanted to go on a killing spree with a knife, I'm probably not going to be able to kill as many people as I could with a handgun or a rifle.
The effect of Destiny going vegan has almost no relation to the average person going vegan. I went vegan, and within 2 weeks my girlfriend was vegan. Within a month, one of my friends went vegan, and over another 6 months, almost all my close friends started making more plant-based meals and showing them off in our group chat. And I don't even have 1% of Destiny's reach. He doesn't just have a megaphone. He's got a massive fan base that trusts him. If Destiny went vegan and even 0.5% of his followers did likewise, he'd have converted something like 3,000 to 5,000 people. And that's just talking directly. Which leads us to idea virality. At this point, we all know the spread of ideas is at least partially analogous with the spread of disease, though some people think the spread is more similar to an ecosystem. This means you have nodes in the social networks that act as super spreaders, which Destiny would certainly be. And the thing with super spreaders is they have a much higher likelihood of reaching other super spreaders, who then have a chance of reaching yet other super spreaders. Imagine if Destiny convinced Vosh or Hassan or David Pakman to go vegan. Those ripple effects would be enormous and nonlinear. The idea that him going vegan would make a negligible impact is just insane to me. So let's move to the idea that Destiny's taking the average citizen's perspective. Does the average person going vegan make a difference?
Do you understand and accept that the impact that any one individual has on climate change is negligible? Not owning one slave makes a significant difference in the life of that one slave. Not participating in animal agriculture is basically a wash in society at the end of the day. It makes no difference.
Destiny's implicit premise here is that making a difference should be judged only on relative grounds and not absolute grounds, meaning because the percent reduction of CO2 or of pollution or animal suffering is low, there's no reason to go vegan. But consider that going vegan saves somewhere between 30 to 600 animals per year, depending on your source. Does it matter that the percentage of not saved animals is high? Imagine you're walking down the road and see this dog stuck in molten rubber. Would you save that good boy? Or would you say, no way I'm helping that dog. It would only make a negligible difference to the total number of dog deaths. No, you'd save the f***ing dog. You know you would. Look at this good boy. And that's because you at least intuitively recognize that absolute and relative effects both matter. Well, this applies to pollution and CO2 as well. While there are certainly tipping points, CO2 and pollution have analog effects. They don't exhibit purely discrete inputs and outputs. In layman's terms, the more pollution and CO2, the worse things get, even if they just get a little bit worse. And this gets us to possibly the most interesting and controversial objection. But before that, I like my fallacies, and so I want to highlight what is generally going on here. Destiny's flirting with what's known as a Nirvana fallacy. In other words, he seems to be comparing the effect he'll make as an individual going vegan against the much larger effect of everyone going vegan, or the government abolishing factory farming, which isn't a fallacy in itself. The fallacy occurs when you say, because we can't get 100% of people going vegan, or because we can't reduce pollution to zero, I'm not going to do anything. Imagine someone said they weren't going to wear a seatbelt because seatbelts don't work 100% of the time. Or that they weren't going to quit smoking because not everyone who smokes will eventually get lung cancer. Would we take these positions seriously? Likely not, because in these situations, it's much easier to see the Nirvana fallacy in action. Alright, so let's get more controversial and talk about distributed versus individual effects. Now look, I know people are going to have a hard time with this because it doesn't feel right. It doesn't just straight punch you in your moral intuitions, but hang with me. Imagine I'm a smoker and I blow smoke in a child's face from the time they're a baby until they're an adolescent. And this causes them to die of lung cancer at 30, effectively taking 50 years off of their life. Everyone obviously thinks this is a bad thing. But what if my secondhand smokes caused 50 people to lose 1 year of life via ever so slightly premature heart disease and respiratory issues? What would we say about that? My intuition is that most people really wouldn't have too much problem with the second scenario, but I think they should. And while I don't think the two are of equal badness, the second situation strikes me as at least in the same ballpark as the first situation. But why doesn't it feel like it? Well, I think our moral machinery is being gamed by an abstraction that we would have never dealt with in our evolutionary past. In the same way that we suffer from scope insensitivity, an effect best summarized in the quote, "A single death is a tragedy, a million deaths are a statistic," I think we suffer from a related distribution of harm insensitivity. 50 people being robbed of 1 year of their life just doesn't feel even close to as bad as one person being robbed of 50 years. But what does this have to do with destiny? Well, I think we can also extrapolate this to the environmental impact that one person has. The pollution, runoff, CO2, etc. may present an intuitively small effect, but it may exert itself on a very large number of individuals, so that while no single individual's life is massively impacted, there is a myriad of smaller distributed effects that in mathematical terms present the same total detriment to human well-being. Alright, and one final note, which Destiny briefly touches on at the end of his video.
One question, you said that purchasing meat does no direct harm, so you don't really change behavior on an individual level. Do you think this applies to voting as well? As in, one person voting or not voting doesn't change anything, and if so, why do you think people should vote if you do? Yeah, no, I agree that the same thing applies to voting as well. I think that if there are behaviors that we need all of society to do, but if one individual doesn't do them, it doesn't cause any harm, that behavior needs to be legislated. I think that this is like the free rider problem, right, Irk? Aren't we basically just talking about a free rider problem? This is why I think voting should be compulsory. I vote because I talk about like political issues and shit, so like I think that it's probably important to vote because it shows that I'm committed to what I'm talking about. But like I do think it's hard if voting like represented like a big hurdle to somebody's like free time or some shit, like yeah, fuck it. Then yeah, I could understand people like saying like, yeah, fuck it, like my one vote won't matter, which is why it should be compulsory, I think, yeah.
I won't get into it here, but I find this response pretty unsatisfying. If you think I'm wrong or have a steel man of his argument, let me know in the comments. Also, if you found this thought-provoking, even if you didn't agree with it, hit that subscribe button, and you can yell at me in the comments of my other videos. Thanks for watching.